Morning, class, and welcome to this online lecture based on Chapter 7 from our primary text, The Sacred Quest. And Chapter 7 basically is addressing the problem of evil. So what is the problem of evil? So the problem of evil actually represents not a single problem, but a cluster of issues arising from the attempt to relate a diverse set of experiences to the notion of sacred reality. For example, the psalmist from the Hebrew Scriptures would ask this question: why does good fortune turn to bad? And someone, a critic of the Hindu belief, would ask a different sort of question: why do the righteous suffer and the wicked flourish? So in religious traditions that stress the power and goodness of one God who rules over all creation, the existence of evil presents a logical dilemma. For example, if God is good and powerful, what's the nature of evil? Where did it come from? Why is it even here? And if God could prevent evil but does not, can God truly be good? And on the other hand, if God is good but cannot prevent evil, can God truly be all-powerful? So as you can see, the problem of evil is a very difficult question, but one that needs to be wrestled with, and one that all major world religions have to identify and provide some kind of answer to. And there are several different ways that the problem of evil is addressed, and we're going to look at four for the purpose of this lecture: karma, the consolation of promise, the appeal to sovereignty, and dualism. And we'll start with karma. And karma is the Hindu response. Karma signifies the moral weight of one's actions. Good or proper actions result in good karma and progress towards the goal of enlightenment. Basically, what goes around comes around, right? So since they have a cyclical view of time, that's how evil is dealt with in the Hindu belief system, that you're going to get what you deserve, basically. And not necessarily in this lifetime, but maybe in a future lifetime or several lifetimes down the road. So it's going to happen. It's going to be taken care of over the long cycle. And that's a little different than the Buddhist perspective on evil, even though it's an Eastern religion and they share a lot of similar ideas about time and other sacred realities. But the Buddhists look at evil that is located in the self. It's in our passions and desires. And the brute facts of cruelty and pain are not simply the luck of the draw, nor are they connected with the will of God. The one who attains enlightenment knows that the resolution of the experiences associated with evil does not depend on a god or goddesses, nor does it depend on other human beings. In the fundamental sense, the solution to the problem of evil is dealt with by each individual person. So another classic response is the consolation of promise. That at some future time, evil will be overcome, justice will be satisfied, and the point of suffering will be made clear. Such a response uses the language of promise, offering consolation and hope to those who are currently suffering. Just how or when that promise will be fulfilled is a matter of which there are many different opinions. The Jewish have a perspective on evil involving the consolation of promise. They wait for the Messiah who's yet to come. When the anointed one of the Messiah arrives, he will reestablish the nation of Israel and will rule other nations, quote unquote, with a rod of iron. Now, it's worth noting that some Orthodox groups hold that the contemporary state of Israel is not the fulfillment of this promise. Some Jews believe that the very nature of the state of Israel is the fulfillment of this promise and represents the Messiah, but many Jews do not believe that. Rather, they view that the Jewish state is a violation of the Torah, a manifestation of the impatience and disobedience of humanity, rather than the work of God. Christianity also holds to the consolation of promise that the Messiah has come. Jesus Christ is that Messiah. That his life, death, and resurrection manifest the promise of God to bring about a peaceable kingdom. But the work of Jesus is not yet complete, however. And again, to quote from the Bible, he will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead, and his reign will have no end. And the doctrine of the Parousia, P-A-R-O-U-S-I-A, or the second coming of Christ, indicates that the fulfillment of the promise is yet to come. And Muslims hold a very similar view. Islam embodies the promised theme, common to both Judaism and Christianity. An idea appears in the Islamic tradition that the Mahdi will come and appear at the time God decides and will establish a rule of justice and equity on the earth. Islam refers to an afterlife in which good will be rewarded, evil punished, and suffering explained. And all this happens through a day of resurrection and judgment where God will resolve once and for all the problem of evil. Another response is the appeal to sovereignty. That sovereignty appeal finds its power in affirming that, at least from the human standpoint, there are no solutions to the problem of evil. The book of Job, found in the Hebrew Scriptures, it talks about the sovereignty response, and as such, it has both baffled and comforted believers throughout generations of the Jewish and Christian faith. A quick synopsis of that story: Job was a man who was righteous before God, and Satan, or the accuser, was looking down on Job and said, of course he's going to be righteous. He has everything he needs. Look, he's got wealth. He's got a great family. He's got children. He's got all kinds of possessions. And Satan and God made an arrangement that Satan could test Job and take everything away and see if he would still honor and respect God. And Job suffered terribly. He lost everything he had except for his wife, and it turned out his wife was a nagging wife. But that's a whole other part of the story. But anyway, there's suffering, and Job is trying to reconcile the suffering in his life. And through this, he just keeps appealing to God and appeal to sovereignty. Why is this happening? What's going on? Why is this suffering come into my life? And Job provides a good example of the appeal to sovereignty. Another way that the problem of evil is addressed is through dualism. Now, dualism does find its way to a certain extent in most world religions, but not fully, because truly dualism in its truest form represents evil and good both being equal. And even in the Western traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, there's a sense of that, but in the end, God has control to a certain extent over the evil in this world, what's allowed and what's not allowed. In dualism, evil is a result of a conflict between good and evil powers, both of which share some of the characteristics of the sacred reality. And from the perspective of dualism, God is good, but God's sovereignty faces a severe challenge from those powers that do evil in the world. And in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, God's sovereignty isn't really challenged by the evil in this world. And there are, like I said, a lot of traditions that have elements of this, but they don't go all the way as far as a true sense of dualism. The best example is Zoroastrianism, which truly has a true view of dualism. And as you're evaluating, I don't know why I'm hung up on that word, evaluating the responses to the problem of evil, we must ask ourselves: are the answers adequate? Are they logical? Do they make sense to us? Are they coherent? Do the answers satisfy us psychologically? And finally, what are the moral consequences of the problem of evil? So, evil is like I said, a difficult question to wrestle with, but it would probably make a really good question on a final exam, right? So, a final exam question that you might have to answer would address the problem of evil, and it would sound something like this: in addition to dealing with the sacred, religions must deal with the problem of evil. Write an essay on your understanding of evil and how various religions deal with it. And we've already looked at the four main ways: karma, consolation of promise, the appeal to sovereignty, and dualism. So a good short essay on the final exam would probably look at that maybe the difference between the way the Eastern religions deal with it, i.e. karma, and the way the Western religions deal with the problem of evil, for example, the consolation of promise. answering those two would be a very good essay question for the final exam. Well, that's it for evil. So stay tuned for the next episode. Have a good day. See ya.